Hello. If you want to support us here at The Contemporary Gentleman, you can buy into our Spy series, links below. And depending on when this was recorded, we may or may not have an Instagram and or Patreon. If we do, links are below. Cheers. Hello everyone, James Donaldson here with The Contemporary Gentleman, and I'm bringing you a video on the Hager Aquamariner. It is a automatic movement dive watch from the company Hager. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, we did get this product directly from Hager. It was given to us, we asked for it. It was given to us for the Spy series. So basically for a picture of it in the book and some Instagram posts. Now, we were able to keep the watch, so we kept using the watch, and especially once some other watches failed, it became my only watch that I have. So with its accelerated performance, or its accelerated use, its performance just continued and it impressed us. So we felt, even though the watch was never given to us for any intent of us reviewing it, we feel it earned a review. Alright, so meat and potatoes. Hager Watches is a watch company out of Hagerstown, Maryland. The Aquamariner specifically, it's an automatic or self-winding watch. It has a Miyota, I believe is how you say it, 9015 automatic movement. I don't know if I pronounced any of that right. I'm not really much of an orologist, I think is how you say it. So you can't even pronounce it, so. It's a self-winding mechanical movement with a metal movement holder. So, I don't fully know what that means, but I figure there's some watch people watching the video, so they're gonna hear me say it and know what I'm saying. So I guess I'm kind of like a mule in that sense. A mule of information. So functions, you got quick correction of the day and date, hours, minutes and seconds. The second date the date is displayed at 3 o'clock, as you're no doubt seeing in these pictures. The watch pricing is about $550 to $650, depending on how or which model. So coloring basically is the differences of the models, which one you choose. I believe it's the in DLC or DLC finish one, the black one, and that's the more expensive one if I remember correctly. Now they are water resistant to 300 meters, so also known as 1,000 feet. And then the bezel, unidirectional, rotatable, 60-minute graduated bezel. Disc in matte midnight blue, matte black, or matte burgundy, or anodized aluminum with engraved markers. So, you're kind of seeing a lot of this now. It has an anodized crown tube, and the material is 316L marine grade stainless steel, polished with satin finish. The diameter is 41 millimeter without the crown, so excluding measuring the crown. The dial is applied luminous indexes, so basically it's got illumination around. The crown is a screw-down winding crown with Hager, I keep saying it wrong, logo in midnight blue, black or burgundy anodized aluminum winding crown tube. So you'll notice that there's a little coloration right around where the crown goes against the crown tube. By the way, another brief tangent, I keep pronouncing it wrong because I hadn't heard it said for a really long time. I assumed it was Hager. So anyway, continuing on. The bracelet is stainless steel and with brushed screw links instead of pins, and 2-button clasp and 2-button slide lock extension system, and no need for half links. So there are 3 places right here where you can attach this. So you can kind of make these little incremental adjustments as you also remove and add links. So it's very easy to get this watch to fit your wrist. Now this part adjusts. As you can see, there's some teeth in there, and that's how it works. Very dirty. We'll talk about that. But I really love that feature. Now the finish is brushed with polished sides and beveled edges along with a satin finish. The beat rate is 4 Hertz or 28,800. That's the 28,000 vibrations per hour. And then Novodiak shock absorber. So I actually do know what the shock absorber is doing. So when you move your hand, there's motion with the watch. There's something moving inside, kind of like when you charge those flashlights, shake weights, whatever. It's hard to really not do suggestive hand signals. Basically, something is moving. We'll go that way. Yeah. Okay, less awkward. So something is moving as it's getting swung around, and so on the other end, it's basically pushing the kinetic energy it's receiving down the line. And so what you do is if you get too much kinetic energy, there's got to be a way to stabilize it. So in my job, my real job that I do for real money, it's about flow control. So we have these things called pressure reducers or pressure regulators. So basically you got flow coming down a pipe, and if it's too much, you have this little thing in the way, and to make sure that whatever is coming downstream from it is at a certain pressure. So it's basically what the shock absorber is doing, is it's trying to maintain a certain amount of kinetic energy going through the watch. Now that is as I've understand it and studied it. So if an orologist wants to jump into the comments and tear me apart, please do, because I don't want to give misinformation. I did my best to understand this in a way I could explain it. So again, if I failed, let me know. Moving on, accuracy. So minus 10 to plus 30 seconds per day. I would say I'm usually getting plus 30 seconds per day. It's pretty common. Maybe a little less. So there are certain ways you can store it. So it's crown up, crown down, or just flat. Basically, until it hits a certain point where of no movement, mine just seems to be adding seconds. I tried to do it. I tried to figure out which way I could rest it to have it not add seconds, and if anything, lose seconds overnight. But it was so inefficient I didn't really notice, so I just kind of haven't bothered doing that. It's pretty easy to wind the crown out and reset the watch, and even then I like it running a little bit fast, and I like it sneaking up because I am all about punctuality. So my watch is constantly making me be more and more on time. So there's that. Alright, so talking reflective surfaces, reflective properties rather. So Hager, on at least more than one other watch, uses an anti-reflective coating. Now, it's glass, right? It's crystal, sapphire. It's going to reflect some, but it's not going to be like a mirror. It's not going to be that bad. Now, Suunto's going to have a similar deal, and so on and so forth. And some, of course, aren't engineered that way. This is a watch for spies, again, so that's one of the reasons it has that. So, styling, this watch has a classic look and style to it that one could probably categorize as an homage to Rolex Submariner, which is often repeated by many watch companies. And I mentioned that earlier, but so being into the Bond watches, Bond gear and everything, it's one of the reasons I've been to gear. It's actually a big node to how I live my life and who I am, but especially in my early 20s. But the point is that when I created the spy character Forrest Reed, well, he's a very different character than James Bond at the end, because who needs another James Bond? You just watch or read a real James Bond. So, still a spy character, very different stories, very different type of character, but I wanted to throw some homage back to Bond. And so one of those things is watch. I wanted an American watch. I like simple and classic styles, definitely like the Submariner, but also I find a lot of use in dive bezel. So there were a lot of reasons that I wanted a specific watch. So I literally Googled and spent hours, deployed by the way at the time. So at some point we did a mission and I'm just doing my research for this thing, and I found Hager. So that's why I selected them, and my cohort agreed with me, and so there we have it. History was made. Now the other part to that, our spy having it, is not only did the look catch our eye, but Hager is run by somebody who is affiliated with the CIA. So this watch, as we say, is designed for spies by spies. So it's actually extremely rugged and durable. And a lot of people know this, but like a Rolex or a Seiko or a Tudor, those watches, even though they look fancy and nice and cost a lot of money, especially the Rolex, you know, you're talking upwards of 20 grand depending on the model, they're they're actually extremely rugged. So when you're looking at a watch like this for only $550, and we'll get into this, it's very much, hesitate to say steal. I mean, it's an incredibly good deal, credible value for money as the watch has lasted. But the point being that these watches see gunfights, they see hard use, they see car wrecks, they see all kinds of stuff, and they just keep working. So that was another thing that was important to us when picking a watch that our spy would use. So what makes a dive watch a dive watch? Well, for one, very few openings. Basically just the crown and the back, which of course are sealed, waterproof, watertight, excuse me. Now there's also the bezel, both in that it's unidirectional, only goes one way, which we will discuss. Oh, I passed it. Anyway, it's hard doing this through the camera. Anyway, also the markings on it. The markings make it a dive watch as well. This dive watch has 60 clicks. If it had 120, it'd be every minute and half minute. So you can kind of get the math there. So the reason is because divers can time their dives. So let's say that we're going to dive right now. The minute hand is there. And we're going to dive for 20 minutes. So 60 minus 20 is 40. So if we turn our bezel here, roughly, basically, when the, oh, I totally did that wrong. Excuse me. We put the 40 there, and that way in 20 minutes it hits the triangle and tells me as I'm diving, I'm watching it closer and closer to the end. Now there are reverse bezels, which honestly if you're counting down make more sense, where at the very least your marks are over on this side, but also the numbers are reversed. Anyway, that's very uncommon. This is a lot more common of a design. I do like this diver watch because to me it's like a tool. I can time things like a stopwatch. If I say, okay, I've got 10 minutes to go take care of this task, and then of course 10 minutes passes and it hits the 10. If I'm counting down, or if I want to see how long it takes, I set that to the minute hand, and then wherever the minute hand gets to when I'm done with the task I know, and then count down, of course, I showed you already. So, of course, I can also keep track in my head if I want to pretend this is a GMT watch. Let's say I go to a place that's an hour off from me. So, I simply set it off by an hour, depending on which way. And then that's it. And so now I pretend the hour hand, if it's getting between that line and the 50, well, that means that the hour hand is not actually near the 9, it's near the 10. So, you get the idea. And then finally, the fact that dive watches usually steel or some other hard material. So, steel, stainless steel, all that. Stainless steel is especially when brushed, non-porous metal, so it doesn't really rust easily, I should say. It can rust, does not rust easily. Again, knowledge and understandings from my normal career, where I actually make a living, applying to my hobbies. So caveats and variables, amount of use. As I said, this has been my full-time watch. So it has been doing, it's been going to the shooting ranges with me, it's been going to Army stuff, which includes shooting ranges and other stuff. I mean, there's me shooting a 50 cal, hitting that butterfly, and, you know, the watch taking every vibration. What's more? Kid duty. I mean, this thing gets submerged in the bath when I'm giving kids a bath. It's been puked on, it's been spit up on, drooled on, it's gotten food on it, etc., etc. So, you know, actually for the lifestyle I live and all the things I have going on right now, this has taken an extra amount of abuse, and I can't say I'm surprised at its performance, but I am impressed. Now, you know, what happened to other watches? So, they're Suntos, they're electronic. One I don't like as much as the other one, and the other one, the band broke. Now, a lot of my friends, their band broke, and they don't use the watch. I have extra bands. The problem is I can't get the bands that are broken off to put the new ones on. So that is my problem, and so for well over a year now, this has pulled full-time duty. And any other watch I have, it's out of batteries and not nearly as rugged in the first place. So as far as reliability, other than dings and scratches, which I don't factor into reliability, it's just cosmetic marring, non-stop reliability. And I waited specifically over 3 years to do this review because an automatic watch, granted I didn't look through the Hager material to see when they recommend, but most automatic watches, the companies recommend they get service at 3 years. And so I'm over 3 years at this point, and there's no signs of any issues whatsoever. At the very least, therefore, it has surpassed the standard. How much further it will go, we will see. So movement, as I said, it's automatic, but some other benefits and other information about that than what I've already said, such as plus 30 seconds a day or so. So, again, we're getting way far out there, but for the most part, these types of watches are resistant to EMPs. And so, while you think, well, who cares? Why do I care what time it is? There's a fair amount of information you can gather from time and knowing when things happened or what's going on or when you need to be somewhere. You got plans and EMP impedes that, but you still know, okay, I got to be at X landing zone, at 1500, whatever. I'm just giving examples here. Again, I know this is getting into the weeds, but it is information nonetheless. But of course you can also time things, so maybe what time it is irrelevant, but being able to say, okay, I'm tracking and it's been a half hour since the EMP went on, whatever. You understand what I'm trying to say. Now, you can hear the ticking and winding, and to me that's a plus. Either way, that's not negative. I appreciate that I can hear it. You can hear that it's running, but also it's just kind of a cool feature that you don't get out of a battery-ran watch. So some of this is a little more emotion than function, but nonetheless, it's there. Something I do want to be very specific about is I don't recommend watch winders. Those are the things that, like in watch cases, and one of them like turns. So the reason I don't recommend that is, well, I should say, so the good ones of those will take a rest, and they will stop turning every once in a while. But even then, I just wouldn't bother. So it's just going to cause continuous wear when you don't have to. Otherwise, if you don't pay attention, that winder will, it might lead to watches rubbing. And I may or may not have had a very nice watch that was given to me through family, and the bezel was ruined because another watch's crown rubbed it off. So don't use watch winders. So the bracelet, I've had many watches with different types of bracelets to include, which by the way, bracelet is when you've got a metal deal, right, instead of a strap or band. But bracelet, I've had less expensive Seikos and had those bracelets break. Sometimes just much as pounding my fist against a door or something like that, watch falls. So this, as I said, has dealt with everything. Something else impresses me about the bracelet, so I adjusted it myself. I used tiny screwdrivers and a little pin kind of thing to move this around. So I did all that myself, and when I first got it. So this watch has been through 3 years of craziness and insanity, and none of that has worked its way loose, and it has seen a lot of abuse and use. So that's fantastic. Now I also, as I stated before, love the adjustment feature. I've never seen it on any other watch. If I, for some reason, had a different watch, I would try to get this bracelet on it because it's just a fantastic feature. You can tighten it if you need the watch to hold more tight. Sometimes, if you're sweaty or you get some water in there from washing your hands, you can loosen it and your watch is just a little looser, whatever. A friend of mine said, well, I can just unclasp it. And I was like, well, yeah, but then it could fall off your wrist. This is just looser, It's got about, I want to say 5 settings. So, love that feature. It does have some markings on the bracelet, just from use. They don't bother me. They might, some of them, probably most of them would even polish out. Maybe all of them would. I haven't really been interested to test that, just because they're going to come back. Maybe I'll do it one day just to see, but definitely I didn't even see the point for this video, considering I'm trying to help market this watch as a very rugged watch. So, why bother? Then the bezel, it seemed like it loosened up a tad, and every once in a while it gums up, and I kind of have to twist it and break it loose, or just kind of wait. It'll get easy again. But for the most part, it's generally easy to do. Now, again, a lot of stuff can work its way in there. I mean, baths with, give my kids baths kind of is the first and foremost. But I mean, this goes in pools with me, ocean, etc. So, again, it's something that it's a thing that happens that really doesn't bother me. You could say I'm simping because I got this watch for free, but remember, I didn't need to review it. I use it daily for timing all kinds of stuff. If I tell my daughter, all right, 5 minutes and then we gotta leave, or I'm timing, like, gonna run an errand over lunch, I wanna make sure I'm within the window of an hour. I'll put the red triangle where the minute hand is and go about my business, and I can check, okay, I got about 20 minutes, so I gotta be back. So I use the bezel as it's intended. And that has received most of the damage that the watch has taken when you compare it to the bracelet and the case and all that. Again, doesn't bother me considering what this watch has been through. What's it for? Other than the crystal, it is the most exposed part, and maybe other than the crown as well. So it does just, sometimes I'm paying attention, bash it on a metal doorway or something accidentally. Keep in mind, this has to do mount with me because I don't have another watch. So, and I'm not really in the habit, especially on a watch like this, to turn it inside out. Sometimes I do that with my Suntos, but for this, not the case. Also, this is aluminum, so nicer bezels are going to be better material, maybe ceramic, for instance. I would say that's probably one of the reasons this watch is less expensive, is they kind of cut some costs by using different materials. Now, I don't mind that, because I like the $550 price tag, and can I still read the bezel from somewhat of a distance? Does the watch still look good? Yeah, so even though there's some gashing and stuff in there, it really doesn't bother me that it's a softer material that has taken a beating. So if that bothers you, then maybe pick up, a Tudor for $3,000, right? That's a lot more money. Will the watch perform equally well? It might even beat it in some cases, but at the end of the day, to go from $550 to $3,000 watch just for the bezel, I mean, okay, it's your money, right? It's America, free country, but I'm not interested in doing that. If anything happens to this watch, I will probably replace it with an identical watch. So the crystal, there's not a scratch on it. Again, I've had watches, which is what I thought was crystal, and I don't know that it was. So, anyway, very impressed with that. I'm glad they use crystal, because I've had, as I said, plenty of other watches use regular glass or what I thought was crystal, and they scratched easily. So for me, the bezel, I don't even see it when I'm looking at my watch. However, a scratched up crystal would bother me more if that happens. So I appreciate, I'd rather them cut the cost on the bezel than the crystal, I can say that for sure. Luminous Indexes, basically it lasts incredibly long, pretty impressively. I mean, recently, well, I say recently, several months ago, at AT I was in tent, and I could check my watch at almost dawn, and I could see what time it was. So that was a really handy feature, mainly because I was wearing the watch and my phone was up above me. So also this can be gentler on the eyes. So again, just a convenience thing, but wow, a feature that's really appreciated. So the crown functions as intended. No signs of wear, easy to use, and yeah. So the date complication, it works perfect. Nothing else to say about it. So why is it so reasonably priced? I would say one, materials. They were careful about where they cut costs and where they did not. They clearly saved money on marketing, because I can't even look back as to how I found this watch company, Hager. So that's impressive. Again, not using a ton of money on marketing. Now, they also use a movement that's made by somebody else that's not in-house. I believe everything else is done in-house, at least as far as I understand. Now that spares them, you say, okay, well, they're just a movement. Well, it spares them a lot of R&D. And R&D is very important, especially when you have a product that's really good, but it could use improvement. That's what R&D is for. So that costs a lot of money. So the fact they get automatic movement from someone else, was probably one way they did that. Now, I have a Seiko that costs over $300, and I would spend the extra money on this watch all day, every day. No question. No question about it. That watch has the scratched crystal, as well as a bracelet that comes off of the case when you impact it on something. So for less than $200 more, well, I'd say somewhere around $200 more dollars, the amount of watch you get over that Seiko is mind-blowing to me. I just can't believe the difference. I mean, you're talking the price difference is like that, the quality is like that, just out of the frame. So again, it seems like I'm raving. I will have a not rave part coming up in a minute, so I'm not trying to simp here. What changes would I make to it? I would be curious what it would take to make the bezel out of a different material, such as like 316 stainless steel. Part of that curiosity includes how much the price would go up, you know? If it made it a $600 watch, I think that would be worth it. If it made it a $700 watch, again, the performance I'm getting out of this thing for not much more than that Seiko, it's staggering. I mean, I would probably pay $700 for this watch new if it had a 316 stainless steel bezel, definitely for ceramic. So, all right. So to give a update on the Hager before I close this out, Hager is so it actually broke right after filming this video. I'm talking like a week later. It broke. I could kind of set it and made some really weird noises when I'd shake it, but it would actually keep running for several hours and then it would stop running again. And so it was a while before I got around to sending it in, sent it to Maryland Watch Works, and it actually was pretty quick for them to receive it, kind of update me on what the story was, and then fix it and send it back. I mean, I want to say I sent it and got it back in a month or less, which overall is pretty good. Could have even been more like 3 weeks, but I want to say this is about the time frame. As watch repairs go, I think that's pretty good, especially where I had to send it to Maryland and it had to come all the way back to me. And this is a place, so they repair a variety of different watches. I asked their opinion about them. They said, generally speaking, I don't want to quote them, but the Aquamariners seem to do pretty good overall. So, great notes on that. Now, what happened to my watch was it just received one too many blows that loosened the, man, I'm going to blank on what the hell it was that loosened the official name. But basically the part that rotates, maybe I went down here. Basically the part that rotates, that winds it, came disconnected. So it wasn't turning anything, at least enough. Initially it was doing it some, but basically got to the point where it was just rotating and none of the kinetic energy was getting through to the rest of the watch, and so the watch wasn't being powered. Now, it was relatively inexpensive to fix. They only replaced a couple parts, so this doesn't really change my review on the Hager at all. I like the watch very much. I'm right back to using it. I'm glad, because I actually got down to 0 watches and had to buy a Garmin for field exercise, so I have a very digital watch and a very analog watch. And I'm good with this setup. I still wear this most of the time and enjoy it very much. It's still a good looking watch, and I'm curious to see how far it gets through this next round before it has to be serviced again. I'm hoping 3 years. I'm thinking at least 3 years, and so probably an update when that happens. But either way, like I said, none of my opinion has really changed on this watch, and so now the close. As I said, my mind is blown that a watch of this quality can be had for $550. While this watch was given to us, I would spend my own money on it in a heartbeat, and will likely purchase other Hager products in the future. I've also recommended friends of mine pick them up as well, so I am telling people to buy this watch. And now finally, I am perplexed that more people have not done videos on this watch, which tells me not enough people are buying them and using them. I would love to see some other people's reviews on these watches and talking about their experience. So, this has been James Donaldson with the Contemporary Gentleman, and until next time, keep your composure.